Police are now answering questions regarding a shooting that took place in Northern California that unfortunately led to the death of 5 individuals and several others who were wounded. Now, the man who shot and killed 5 individuals actually had a court order against him. There was a restraining order against him, and the court order indicated that he was prohibited from having guns. However, even though neighbors had alerted authorities on several occasions to let the cops know that this guy was discharging his weapon outside of his home and that he shouldn't have the weapons, nothing was done to stop him. So this happened in a rural part of California. He shot and killed 5 people and wounded at least 8 others at different locations around this rural community of Rancho Tehama Reserve. Police later shot and killed him. His name is Kevin Neal. We do have a mugshot of his, and the reason why he has a mugshot is because back in January, he actually went after one of his neighbors and stabbed her, and that was the reason why she was able to obtain a restraining order against him. Police conceded, though, that neighbors had repeatedly complained about Kevin Neal firing hundreds of rounds from his house, among other erratic and violent behavior. This is what the cops said during the press conference. He was not law enforcement friendly. He would not come to the door. You have to understand, we can't anticipate what people are going to do. We don't have a crystal ball. However, considering the fact that there was this court order against him, indicating that he was prohibited from having these guns, if neighbors had alerted authorities about him shooting and all that stuff, the cops had the ability to just enter his home. They didn't even need to get a warrant, right? They could search his home and make sure that things were safe, but they didn't do that.
But they would have no problem getting a warrant. I mean,
no, they didn't. A lawyer looking into this said no, based on the court order, if there was a probable cause, the cops could go in.
If there's probable cause, but also, but I mean, if they went to a judge and said this guy's been shooting off guns in his house and he's a neighbor, I mean, any prosecution-friendly judge, any reasonable judge would probably say that that is probable cause for a warrant and get him a warrant.
They have 2 options when they say you have to understand, like he was not law enforcement friendly. You have to understand we can't anticipate what people are going to do. You don't have a crystal. We don't have a crystal ball. They have 2 options. One is to find a way through the legal system to enforce the law, and 2 is just get a crystal ball. Just find a way. So as maybe a plan B backup.
Right, go to the crystal ball.
Figure a way to get a crystal ball. Have that in the works, but in the meantime, go get a warrant.
Right, and look again. Like based on this specific case and this specific court order prohibiting him from having guns, they didn't even need to go the extra step of getting a warrant. If they had any probable cause, any suspicion that he had weapons, they could search his home. But they went, they knocked. Apparently this guy wouldn't answer the door, and they're like, oh, okay, I guess this is it. I guess there's nothing else we can do. When in reality, there was much more they could have done. So let me give you more details about the shooting that took place. He had a history of domestic violence against his wife, and one of the victims of this shooting was his wife. Police found the bullet-riddled body of Neal's wife stuffed under the floorboard of their home. Neal also shot 2 of his neighbors in an apparent act of revenge before he went looking for random victims.
Do we know whether it's the neighbor they encountered?
One of the neighbors, the neighbor that he stabbed back in January was one of the victims.
So he went back and killed that person.
Yeah, so he also went for random victims at different locations that included the community's elementary school. Luckily, no children were killed, but there were a number of children who were wounded. He went to a local school and tried to shoot at the kids, but there was an educator there who was incredibly brave and heroic and managed to get all the kids inside a classroom before Neal could get close enough to really cause some damage. Now he kept trying to get into the room, but failed to do so. So he started shooting into the room, and one of the students did get hit with a bullet, or a couple bullets, but he is in the hospital and is expected to make a full recovery.
Yeah, they said it was a school custodian.
Custodian, yeah.
Just got it. I mean, a lot of this is just there are rules in place to keep this guy from having a gun. So there are lots of questions in the gun debate. One of them this one seems to be settled. This guy should not have had access to it legally. There is a law on the books preventing him from doing this. This is a question of whether we are fulfilling the promises we've made.
Yeah.
So he apparently they found a couple of guns they recovered from the scene. They recovered 2 homemade assault rifles and 2 handguns that had been registered to somebody else because he had given up his guns apparently back in February, right?
But he's shooting them off. Right. Now, all the things that we had,
sure, right? Yeah,
this could have been avoided.
Yeah. Look, I think, oftentimes people say, well, we have some gun control measures and why don't they work? Well, part of the problem is, the enforcement of these measures is lacking. And there are lawmakers right now in Congress that are trying to solve that issue. So if there is any form of background check, sometimes there's a lack of communication or miscommunication between different states, or some of the information isn't updated into someone's record. All sorts of things kind of fall through the cracks, allowing someone who shouldn't legally obtain a gun to go off to a gun store and buy it, And so again, there are some efforts to stop that from happening. But I mean, we have to strengthen whatever, flimsy laws we have in the first place. And we also need to have a conversation about, gun safety as well, because there's never any discussion about that. I know you guys did a story in Hour 1 about a man who accidentally discharged his gun at a church and shot his wife.
We didn't actually.
Oh, you guys didn't get to it.
No, we didn't get to it.
So there was a story prepared, but unfortunately you guys didn't get to it. But yeah, a guy is in a church, he's showing off his gun to churchgoers, thinks that he took all the bullets out, and then he accidentally discharges the gun and shoots his wife. Luckily, no one got killed, but we need to have a real conversation about gun safety in addition to what we can do.
Who shows their gun off at a church?
That's America, man. That's just the country we live in, and I feel like it's a type of culture that maybe we don't understand, but for some people, it's like the most normal thing in the world.
Just think for a second. Every time I followed the story of that California shooting for the last day since we found out that his wife was under the floorboards, like who'd gotten a restraining order against him. Just think about the horror that this woman went through, right? Get a restraining order against him, protect yourself, and then there he is. You know what he's capable of. I mean, just every moment of her. The last moment of her life was as bad as it could possibly be.
Yeah.
Help us build independent media together. Come join us, tytnetwork.com/join.